Greetings. By virtue of your presence watching this video today, I want you to know that we consider you to be an extended member of our family at Unity in Linwood. We believe that you are an individualized expression of that one creative impetus which stands behind all life, and as such we celebrate the uniqueness which you are, and we celebrate our unity with you. We are glad you're with us.
Good morning. We host a Holy Thursday service every year. So at 7 o'clock p.m., please join us for what's been written as the most sacred and experiential service of the year. It includes a foot-washing ritual, beautiful music, physical communion, a candlelighting service, and a 12 powers meditation. Thursday, 7 o'clock. Today is the last Sunday to register for a spiritual Seder, a fully catered ritual meal hosted by Rabbi Ted Falcon. That will wrap up our 64 Ways in 64 Days season for nonviolence on Wednesday, April 4th, beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. The cost is $40. You may register by finding someone who looks important or by going to the website. And finally, if you're interested in becoming a member of this evolving idea we call Unity in Linwood, please plan to join me on Sunday, April 8th, following this service for an orientation experience, followed by a new members reception in your honor on Friday, the 27th of April, followed by new members Sunday on the 29th. Applications are available at the Welcome and Information Station. If you have not visited our spiritual gift shop lately, today is your day. They are hosting a book sale in Friendship Hall. A number of titles are available at 25% off. And if you haven't noticed, you may now sport about town in your new Unity in Linwood hat and t-shirt combo, drinking coffee from your Unity in Linwood coffee cup. And it does taste better. So beyond being Palm Sunday, and Kathleen McEwen, yet again a triumph, our in-house designer, thank you so much. Beyond being Palm Sunday, today is the third in our series entitled The Kingdom of Heaven. And from week one, I've sought to emphasize these as teachings of real-world relevance. Judaism's most famous rabbi and Christianity's most revered avatar was, I believe, far more fascinated with how we navigate our earthly journeys together right here on this floating garden than he was with what occurs after these earthly journeys end. I mean, think about it. Last week we chatted about two parables, one in which the kingdom was likened to a woman who bakes, and another in which the kingdom was likened to a man who plants. Everyday people, both. And this week we turn our attention to a gentleman who stumbles upon a treasure while skipping through a field, and a merchant who stumbles upon a pearl while searching for a prophet. Everyday people, both. And again, let's be reminded that given context, Jesus' stories aren't best taken as Sunday school lessons being delivered to third graders. Rather, they are best taken as masterful teaching tales designed to press us beyond ourselves, as provocative and relatable parables meant to bring our easy answers, our arbitrary conclusions, our habitual perceptions, our accepted values into some question. And that, well, tasty things can come from sour stuff in the case of the woman who bakes. And that Big things can come from small stuff in the case of the man who plants. As encouraging and as true as these interpretations are, they quite simply don't fit that bill. In other words, such interpretations leave easy answers, arbitrary conclusions, habitual perceptions, and accepted values largely intact. And because normative Christianity likes to strip what it perceives to be any tinge of shadow from such stories and from their author alike, I mean, let's face it, and I won't ask for a show of hands, but there are people in this room who duck and cover at any suggestion that Jesus might have been married. Not to mention at any suggestion that he might have fathered children. And because normative Christianity likes to strip what it perceives to be any tinge of shadow from such stories, we've inherited G-rated titles for these stories, such as, well, the hidden treasure and the pearl of great price, both of which conjure images of Johnny Depp and Orlando Bloom sailing the high seas on something of a pirate ship. And while we don't know if Jesus told these stories consecutively or if they were simply recorded consecutively by skillful editors such as those who compiled Matthew, in the same way that the woman who bakes and the man who plants were recorded together, so too were the trespasser and the treasure and the profiteer and the pearl. I like to call these my Disney corrected titles. And so it's been written that the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a merchant, seeking fine pearls. On finding one pearl of extremely great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Now, for some, the easy answer might assign the merchant as the disciple and the pearl as the teaching. So when the disciple finds the gospel, nothing else matters, and the parable becomes one of discipleship. How easy. And for others, the easy answer might assign the merchant as humanity and the pearl as Jesus himself. So when humanity finds Jesus, nothing else matters, and the parable becomes one of conversion. How easy. But if we're to take seriously this image of Jesus with the 12, who were the only audience for these teachings, by the way, if we're to take seriously the image of Jesus with the 12, and in so doing we imagine ourselves seated among them in their context, not in ours, it doesn't really make much sense to assign Jesus such lines as, well, when the disciple finds the gospel and when humanity finds Jesus, after all, the gospel wasn't written and Jesus wasn't missing. I'll let that sink in for a minute. The kingdom of heaven is like a person, a merchant. Now, this device of describing a person by a broad category followed by a more specific category was common. The person who sowed weeds among the wheat, for example, was an enemy, a man. And the scribe trained for the kingdom of heaven was a man, a householder, and so forth and so on. But unlike the yeast in last week's story, it's pretty tough to find any positive connotations in either the Hebrew or the Christian scriptures for merchant. You'll remember that it was Jesus who's reported to have thrust all the merchants from the temple, saying, "Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." And it was James who's reported to have condemned those who say, "We will go to such and such a town and spend a year there doing business and making money. So for Jesus to start the kingdom of heaven as like a person, a merchant, would raise some eyebrows. It was a great opening line in that way. He was really good at opening lines, you see. In cynical circles of today's world, we might imagine a teacher beginning, the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a gambler. Or the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a lawyer. And why are we so hard on our lawyers anyway? I happen to have a number of lawyer friends. I love them all dearly, but I digress. Nonetheless, he's not going so far as to say the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a mafia hitman, or the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a career politician. But he's not saying the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a Carmelite nun, or the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a Boy Scout either. According to Amy Jill Levine, one appropriate interpretation might be the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a profiteer who sells unnecessary items at unfair prices. So what we might entertain at this point is that the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a profiteer. Now, according to Pliny, pearls were more expensive even than rubies. So rare were these extravagant jewels that the majority of the Roman Empire would not see one in the course of a lifetime. And like the term merchant, the term pearl often imparts something of a negative vibe. It was Timothy who wrote, "Women should dress themselves modestly and decently in suitable clothing, not with their hair braided or with gold, expensive clothes, pearls." And Revelation offers Babylon that, well, in the interest of any children who might be with us this morning, let's say that Revelation offers Babylon the horse my ministers are laughing at me. Babylon the horse as the great city adorned with gold and jewels and pearls. So with the addition of pearls to the tale, the eyebrows would still have remained as high as those of a Hollywood heiress in her twilight years, leaving us with the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a profiteer, seeking items beyond imagination. Now, given his assignment as a merchant, we might conclude that this person sought multiple pearls because he believed they would bring him gain. Had he been assigned as a nobleman, we might conclude that he sought multiple pearls because he believed they would bring him clout. Were he assigned as a woman, we might conclude that she sought multiple pearls because she believed they would bring her note. But he was not assigned as a nobleman, he was not assigned as a woman, he was assigned as a merchant. So we might conclude that he sought multiple pearls because he believed they would bring him gain. And it seems reasonable to presume that if this merchant had been satisfied in his seeking, he wouldn't have been the subject of our parable, for he would have already been at the Galilean shore sipping margaritas. I threw that in there because the Greek word for pearl is margarita, and I just couldn't pass that up. True. So while we don't know how many pearls our merchant found, what we do know is that he relinquished all of them when he found that one special pearl. In fact, he sold everything he owned when he found that one special pearl. And before you insert themes of sacrifice and martyrdom into our tale, as so many before you have done, let's understand that our tale doesn't say that our merchant sold everything he owned at a loss. For all we know, he may have made something of a veritable fortune on his Galilean garage sale. And beyond this, there's no reference to inflation or profitability or to Craigslist. We have no reason to believe that resale was on his mind. So we might conclude that in selling everything he owned, when he found that one special pearl, which of itself was completely incapable of paying the bills, completely incapable of housing his wife, completely incapable of feeding his children, our merchant had done something that to the outer world must have appeared to be nonsensical at best, completely foolhardy at worst. I have to believe that it was in this very moment that our merchant became the butt of countless jokes which began, "There once was a merchant from Galilee." So what we know is that the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a profiteer, seeking items beyond imagination for gain. Unsatisfied with the many, he found one special item so compelling that he relinquished all others to buy it. And because there's no reference to inflation, because there's no reference to profitability, because there's no reference to Craigslist, because we have no reason to believe that resale was on his mind, we conclude that he was, starting with that choice, no longer a merchant. Which leaves us with the kingdom of heaven is like a person, a profiteer, seeking items beyond imagination for gain. Unsatisfied with the many, he found one special item so compelling that he relinquished all others to buy it, and in so doing, he was changed. How are we doing so far? And at this point, let's acknowledge that Jesus has done what Jesus was incredibly good at doing. He has provided absolutely no answers, but he has left us with some really provocative questions. For example, is the last pearl just another trinket in an exploration of the perils of greed? I mean, after all, was there greed in his world? Yes. Is there greed in our world? Yes. An exploration of the perils of greed would be a really good one for today, if you ask me. Perhaps the great price that was paid by the merchant himself for greed. Or how about this one? Is the last pearl the kingdom of heaven? And are we, like our merchant, required to detach from all lesser pearls in order to reveal it? Detachment makes for a really good lesson as well, don't you think? Or how about this one? If the pearl is the kingdom of heaven, and since our merchant found it, is this just a foreshadowing of the kingdom of heaven being at hand, waiting for humanity to reveal it? After all, it seems perfectly clear that the pearl was there all along. That could be a favorite of mine. I like that one. I like that one. Or maybe it's okay for each of us to get something unique. And maybe it's even okay for me to get one thing in 2018 and to get something different in 2019. In light of this, and whether Jesus intended such an association or not, I will never know, or at least I hope not to find out in the next year or two. In light of this, I have to say I really like our merchant. I like him because he's relatable. I like him because he reminds me of me. And I suppose this is because I relate to standing around the giant pearl plunging barrel, dipping my cosmic spoon into the salty slime for that which I believe will bring me gain. I like to think our merchant I like our merchant. Boy, I'm going to get this right. Breathe, John. We're going to be okay here. I like our merchant because I think he was a human being human. And perhaps you can relate as well, always seeking that healing, always seeking that circumstance, always seeking that acknowledgement, always seeking that supply, that wisdom, always seeking that which you believe will bring you gain. The Hindu would say that we walk paths of pleasure, of success, of community, all of which are appropriate in their respective seasons. But because pleasure and success and community are inadequate to ultimate soul satisfaction, the many paths eventually give way to one path, which his tradition would describe as the eternal realities of life and wisdom and joy. Thank you, Linda Babin. And I find myself reminded of our tale, a tale in which the many pearls eventually give way to the one pearl, which our tradition would describe as the eternal realities of life, of love and wisdom. Maybe this is what our divine science brothers and sisters meant when they said, in the end, we will all figure out that all we really wanted was God. So for me, in 2018, I hear a tale of awakening. I hear a tale of human beings being human for as long as it takes, as we, in the words of this morning's song, simply hold hands and accompany each other home to the eternal realities of life and love and wisdom.
And I'm coming home, and I'm coming home, and I'm coming home, and I'm coming home.
Thanks again for joining us. Please visit unityinlinwood.org for a preview of all upcoming classes, services, and events, and for an opportunity to make a gift to our community should you so choose. Thank you.